The Giant's Challenge. The gym was almost empty on that humid Hong Kong afternoon. The air was thick with the smell of sweat, leather, and linseed oil from old gloves. Bruce Lee moved like a feline in his territory, his bare feet gliding over the worn mat, his fists cutting the air with precise blows. Every movement was a dance, fast, fluid, deadly. He didn't train to impress, I trained because I didn't know how to do anything else. It was then that the door creaked. A man entered, as wide as he was tall, his shoulders almost brushing the doorway. He wore a sleeveless t-shirt, stretched over muscles that seemed carved from granite. His arms were as thick as tree trunks, and his almost non-existent neck fused directly into his shoulders. He carried an Olympic barbell on his shoulders, the weights jingling with each slow, calculated step. 310 kilos, murmured someone in the corner of the gym, a local weightlifter who recognized the newcomer. This is Ivan the Bull Petrov, regional weightlifting champion. They say he once lifted a car to get a child out from under it. Bruce didn't stop. He continued his shadowboxing, his body turning at impossible angles, his high kicks as if defying the ceiling itself. The giant watched for a few seconds, his lips curling into a sneer. "You," he growled, his deep voice like distant thunder. "You're too thin to last. It looks like a dry branch. Where are your muscles? Where is your strength?" Some of those present held their breath. Nobody spoke like that to Bruce Lee. But he didn't react with anger. He just smiled, his dark eyes shining with a dangerous calm. "Strength is not just size," he said, without stopping moving. "It's speed. It's precision. It's knowing where to hit." Ivan snorted, throwing the bar to the floor with a crash that shook the windows. He flexed his arms, his biceps swelling like watermelons. "Let's see then, master. 1 round. No rules. If you touch me once, I'll admit you're right. If not," he laughed, a guttural and challenging sound, "you get out of here and never talk about fighting again." Bruce stopped. For a moment, the gym was silent. Then, with an almost imperceptible movement, he removed the hand protectors and tossed them aside. There was no fear in his eyes. Just focus. "Okay," he said, taking a low stance, his fists raised. "But don't say I didn't warn you." Ivan charged like an enraged bull. His first punch was a hammer, slow, but packed with force that could split a skull. Bruce dodged it with a sideways movement so fast the air whistled. The giant tried to grab him, but his fingers only found emptiness. A side kick connected with Ivan's ribs, not with brute force, but with the precision of a blade. The big man grunted but didn't back away. "That was luck," he growled, moving forward again. This time, Bruce didn't dodge. When Ivan's fist came towards him, he blocked it with his forearm and countered with a sequence of blows, jab, straight, hook, that echoed like gunshots in the gym. Each impact caused the giant to take a step back, eyes wide with surprise. He tried to grab Bruce, but the smaller fighter slipped under his arms, landing a roundhouse kick to the ribs that sent him reeling. "Stop running!" Ivan roared, trying to corner Bruce against the wall. But Bruce wasn't running. "I was playing." And it was his game. With one quick movement, he hooked his foot behind Ivan's heel and pushed at his chest with both hands. The giant, off balance, fell on his back with a crash that shook the building. Dust rose around him like a cloud. For a moment, no one moved. Then, Bruce reached out his hand. Ivan looked at her, his face red with humiliation and anger. But after a long silence, he held her and let himself be pulled back. "Okay," he grumbled, rubbing his ribs. "You are fast. But I still think a punch from me would knock you down." Bruce chuckled, moving back into his shadowboxing. "Maybe," he said. "But you'll never find out." And with that, the giant left the gym, his shoulders hunched not by the weight of the dumbbells, but by the weight of a lesson he would never forget. Final chapter, The Weight of Honor. The next few days were strangely silent in the gym. Ivan didn't return, and Bruce, although relieved, felt an emptiness in the air. The ring seemed bigger without the giant hanging around, the punching bags swayed less, as if even they felt his absence. He tried to convince himself that it was better this way, less tension, less teasing, less risk of a punch that could break his jaw. But something bothered him. That Friday, as I was wrapping my hand wraps, the gym door creaked. Bruce looked up, expecting to see some lost rookie or a veteran looking for a late-night workout. But it was Ivan. He entered slowly, as if each step hurt. He had no gloves, no towel, nor the arrogance he had before. Just a bottle of water and a bandage on his left eyebrow, where a purple bruise was beginning to fade. "I need a favor," he said bluntly. Bruce stopped winding the sash. It wasn't a request. It was recognition. "What kind of favor?" Ivan took a deep breath, as if the words were costly. "Teach me how to fight properly." The request fell between them like an unexpected punch. Bruce crossed his arms. "You already know how to fight. What you don't know is losing." "Exactly." Ivan lowered his eyes. "I don't know how to lose. And this is costing me dearly." Bruce hesitated. It wasn't just about technique. It was about pride, about the monster that Ivan carried inside him and that, until then, only knew how to resolve things with brute force. But there was something sincere about the way he looked at the ground, as if he had finally understood that not everything could be solved with a punch. "Okay," Bruce said finally. "But there is one condition." Ivan raised his head, suspicious. "Which?" "You will no longer use what you learn here to intimidate anyone. Not in the ring, not on the street. If I teach you, it's for you to control yourself, not to become a better weapon." Ivan was silent for a long moment. Then he nodded. "Closed." And so it began. The training was brutal, not because of violence, but because of discipline. Bruce made him repeat basic movements until his muscles burned, until Ivan understood that speed and precision were worth more than brute strength. At first, the giant grumbled, cursed, almost gave up. But Bruce wouldn't give in. "Do you want to learn or do you want to complain?" he said, and Ivan, little by little, learned to swallow his pride. One night, after a particularly intense sparring session, Ivan sat on the floor, his back against the ring ropes, panting. "Why are you doing this?" he asked, between sips of water and another. "After the way I treated you." Bruce wiped the sweat from his forehead with the towel. "Because someone once did that for me," he said. "He took me off the street when I only knew how to break things. And because I see in you what I was, a guy too strong for his own good." Ivan laughed bitterly. "And what happened to you?" "I learned that uncontrolled strength is just waste." The giant was silent. Then he extended his hand. "It cost." Bruce squeezed her. "Don't thank me yet. We still have a lot of work." Months later, Ivan entered his first amateur tournament. He wasn't a perfect fighter, far from it. But for the first time, he didn't rely on strength alone. He used a high guard, dodged blows, counterattacked with precision. And when he won his third fight by technical knockout, it wasn't because he crushed his opponent, but because he cornered him with a sequence that Bruce had taught him. In the locker room, after the fight, Ivan looked at his hands, still shaking with adrenaline. "I won," he murmured, as if he couldn't believe it. Bruce threw a towel over his shoulder. "You won because you learned to fight. Not just with his fists, but with his head." Ivan smiled, a genuine smile, without arrogance. "I still think a punch from me would knock you down." Bruce laughed. "Perhaps. But now you know you don't need it." And for the first time, Ivan didn't respond. He just nodded, because he knew it was true. Outside the gym, night fell over the city. The two walked together, shoulder to shoulder, like old friends. Not as master and student, not as adversaries, but as two men who had found something more valuable than victory, respect. And somewhere between the streetlights and the distant sound of horns, Ivan finally understood what Bruce had always known. That true strength is not in tearing others down. It's about getting up. Final chapter, The Weight of Choice. The night air was thick, thick with the smell of hot asphalt and the distant murmur of the city that never slept. Ivan took a deep breath, feeling the weight of Bruce's words echo inside him. They weren't just words. They were a truth he had spent years trying to ignore, buried beneath layers of pride and anger. "Are you going back to the ring?" Bruce asked, breaking the silence. Ivan looked at his own hands, calloused, marked by old and new scars. He remembered the taste of blood in his mouth, the sound of the crowd roaring, the sick pleasure of seeing an opponent fall. But he also remembered the emptiness afterwards, the loneliness that no title or applause could fill. "I don't know," he finally admitted. "Perhaps. But not the way I did it before." Bruce didn't insist. He knew that some decisions could only be made when his own heart was ready. The two walked in silence to the corner where their paths diverged. Ivan stopped, hesitating. "Thank you," he said, his voice hoarse. "For not giving up on me." Bruce smiled, a simple gesture, but full of meaning. "I never give up on those who can still stand up." And then, as if it were the most natural thing in the world, Ivan extended his hand. Bruce held her, firm, speechless. They didn't need them. Asterisk. 3 months later, the gym was different. The walls, previously peeling, now showed a new layer of paint. The previously broken windows had been replaced with clean glass. And, in the center of the ring, there was not a professional fighter training for the next championship, but rather a group of teenagers, sweaty and determined, learning to defend themselves. Ivan watched everything from afar, leaning against the wall, his arms crossed. He no longer wore gloves. It didn't need to. "Hey, coach," one of the boys called, panting. "When are we going to learn that move you showed yesterday?" Ivan smiled, a smile that no longer carried the shadow of arrogance. "When you learn not to need him." The boy frowned, confused, but Ivan didn't explain. Some teachings only made sense when you lived them. Outside, the sun was beginning to set, painting the sky orange and red. Ivan closed his eyes for a moment, feeling the weight of the choice he had made. It wasn't the easiest path. It wouldn't bring fame or fortune. But for the first time in years, he felt like he was exactly where he was supposed to be. And that was enough. End. The last lesson. The days dragged by like dry leaves blown by the wind. Ivan maintained his routine. He woke up before dawn, swept the tatami of the improvised dojo in the abandoned warehouse, prepared the strong tea that the students hated, and waited. Some arrived early, others late, but all with the same fire in their eyes, the hunger to learn, to prove themselves. He recognized that fire. He had already felt it in himself, years ago, when he believed that strength was everything. But now he knew it wasn't. "Coach, are we going to train defense today?" asked Lucio, the youngest of the group, a skinny 12-year-old boy with always scraped knees. Ivan looked at him and shook his head. "Not today." "But you said defense was important." "And it is. But today you will learn something else." The students exchanged suspicious glances. Ivan approached one of the walls, where a dirty tarp covered something large. With a quick movement, he pulled it out, revealing an old mirror, cracked in some places, but still capable of reflecting. "Today, you will fight against yourselves." Silence. "Like this?" muttered Clara, the only girl in the group, crossing her arms. Ivan didn't respond. Instead, he pointed to the mirror. "Face him. Take a good look. What do you see?" The boys hesitated, but obeyed. Some laughed, others frowned. "I see a lot of sweaty people," said Marcos, the most playful. "And I see someone who still doesn't know what he's capable of," Ivan replied, dryly. "Now, close your eyes." They obeyed. "Take a deep breath." Remember the last time you lost. The last time someone said you weren't good enough. The last time they felt afraid. Feel this. Now, open your eyes. When they did, Ivan was behind them, arms crossed. The enemy is not out there. It's here. He touched each one's chest, one by one. And if you don't learn to defeat him, you'll never win anything else. Lucio swallowed hard. Clara clenched her fists. Marcos, for the first time, didn't make a joke. Today, we are not going to practice punches. Let's practice silence. And so it was. For hours, Ivan made them stand still, with their eyes closed, listening to their own breathing, feeling the weight of their bodies, their heartbeats. Some gave up. Others cried. Clara was the last to stand, shaking but firm. When the sun set, Ivan turned on a single lamp in the center of the shed. The students were exhausted, some sitting on the floor, others leaning against the wall. Tomorrow, said Ivan, turning off the light, we will train again. Nobody responded. The challenge. A week later, the dojo received an unexpected visitor. Ivan was adjusting the students' sashes when the door creaked. A tall man, in a dark suit and a scar on his chin, entered as if he owned the place. Behind him, two men with arms crossed, muscular, with looks that said don't play with us. Ivan Petrov, said the man, smiling mirthlessly. Or should I call you coach now? Ivan didn't move. He recognized him instantly, Viktor Kovalenko, a former partner in underground fights, a man he had left behind when he chose this path. What do you want, Viktor? What I always wanted. Viktor walked across the mat, looking at the students with disdain. Money. Power. And you have something that interests me. I have nothing more for you. Yes, he has. Viktor stopped in front of Clara. This girl. She has potential. Lots of potential. I want to train her. Clara stepped back, eyes wide. I'm not going anywhere with you. Viktor laughed. It wasn't a request. Ivan took a step forward. She is not merchandise. Everything is merchandise, Ivan. Even you. Viktor nodded to his men. Bring her. The two advanced. Ivan's students stood in front of Clara, but they were young, inexperienced. One of Viktor's men grabbed Lucio by the collar and threw him against the wall. The boy fell to the ground, coughing. Ivan didn't move. Not yet. You have two options, said Viktor. Give the girl, or I'll take them all. Ivan looked at his students. Clara was shaking, but her eyes were steady. Marcos clenched his fists. Lucio stood up, blood on his lip. No, said Ivan, finally. Viktor sighed. Then it will be like this. The first punch came quickly. Ivan dodged it, but the second one hit him in the stomach. He didn't fight back. Instead he shouted. Run. The students hesitated. They go. They ran. Clara was last, looking back as the door closed. Ivan smiled at her, a smile that said trust me. Then he turned to Viktor. You've always been an idiot, Viktor said, adjusting his gloves. I could have been rich. It could have been anyone. Ivan spat blood onto the floor. I already am. What followed was not a fight. It was a lesson. Ivan didn't use spectacular strikes. He didn't scream, he didn't show off. He moved with precision, dodging, blocking, counterattacking with the economy of someone who knows that each movement must have a purpose. Viktor was strong, but Ivan was experienced. And, above all, he didn't fight for pride. He fought for them. As Viktor fell to his knees, panting, Ivan approached. You lost. Viktor laughed hoarsely. This isn't over. It's over, yes. Ivan extended his hand. Get up. Viktor hesitated, but accepted. When he was standing, Ivan grabbed him by the collar. If you come back here, if you touch a hair of any of them, I will find you. And next time, I won't let you get up. Victor swallowed. Then he nodded. Get out of my city. Victor and his men left. Ivan stood still in the center of the mat, breathing deeply. The shed was destroyed. The mirror, broken. But he was alive. And so do they. The fresh start. The students returned the next day. Ivan was waiting for them outside, leaning against the wall, as always. Clara was the first to approach. Are you well? Ivan touched the bruise on his face. I am. Will they come back? No. She didn't ask how he was so sure. He just nodded. The others arrived little by little, looking at the destroyed warehouse with a mixture of fear and determination. Ivan said nothing about what had happened. Instead, he picked up a broom. Let's clean up. They worked in silence. Lucio swept up the broken glass. Marcos repaired what he could of the walls. Clara helped Ivan tidy up the mat. When they finished, the place was different. Less perfect. More real. Ivan lit a candle in the center of the shed. Today, we are not going to train. The students looked at each other. Let's talk, Ivan continued. About why you are here. About what they want. About what they are willing to do to achieve it. They spoke. Some cried. Others laughed. In the end, Ivan blew out the candle. Tomorrow, we will train again. The goodbye. The months passed. The dojo became known in the region, not for fights or competitions, but for something rarer, a place where people learned to stand up. Ivan never wore gloves again. One morning, Clara found him outside, looking at the horizon. You're leaving, aren't you? Ivan didn't deny it. Necessary. Why? Because you don't need me anymore. Clara crossed her arms. That's bullshit. Ivan smiled. Perhaps. But it's true. What if we need it? You know where to find me. On the last day, the students gathered to say goodbye. Lucio gave him a drawing, Ivan holding a sword, surrounded by children. Marcos made a joke about how he would never meet someone so bad at tea again. Clara just hugged him, tight. Thank you, she whispered. Ivan didn't respond. He just touched his shoulder and walked away. When he reached the road, he stopped and looked back. The shed was there, small and sturdy, as always. And for the first time in a long time, he knew he had left behind something that would outlast him. So he moved on.